Welcome to Talk to Me Tuesday on Friday. Today we have not only a special show, but an important topic that we all need to talk about. I would like to welcome you all in today's show. The death of George Floyd and countless other lives has caused a lot of emotional pain and anguish for those communities closely related. Let's take a moment of silence to honor these lives. Thank you. Today we asked this panel to have an open conversation about how they feel and what they think will solve a history of issues we have faced. I want to open up the lines of communication and invite us all, everyone, to have an open conversation. Here we are again, almost 60 years, repeating history, again, for equality. On Tuesday, June 2nd, all 50 states and 18 countries protested together and joined as one. In Houston, Texas, there were 60,000 people that showed up. Let us take a look at what this meant to many of us.
As I've always said, I will always continue to say, that riots are socially destructive and self-defeating. I'm still convinced that non-violence is the most potent weapon available to oppress people in their struggle for freedom and justice. I feel that violence will only create more social problems than they will solve. That in a real sense it is impractical for the Negro to even think of mounting a violent revolution in the United States.
Now, all of you guys were there, and I want to thank you all who took a stand for this topic, especially with the risk of COVID still present in our nation. Attorney Darren Miller, I want to ask you, what would you like to say about this topic, Black Lives Matter?
Thanks, Monty. It's just unfortunate that we're still, after all this time, having to deal with these same issues. When I saw the video of Mr. Floyd just pleading for his life, it just has to stop. We had to take a stand. I'm really proud of how people are coming together from all races, colors, creeds to do something about this, and we had to take our stand also to let people know that this is not okay. This is becoming too normalized, and we've got to do something now to stop this type of activity.
Yeah, and that's why we're here. We have a very strong panel today with all walks of lives, all types of experiences. Now, I want you guys to go ahead and share with us what motivated you, or what is your why on taking that walk and marching in the Black Lives Matter protest.
My why was my children. Just to know that I have children that are coming up in today's society who may or may not be safe in the hands of the people that are supposed to protect and serve us. It definitely instills fear in my heart, and I felt the need to be present in that movement and to be a positive reinforcement for change and put forth some positive action. So knowing that my presence there made a difference in my children's lives and for the lives of the other children that are yet to be born, just looking forward to kind of pushing positive change. So for me, that was definitely my motivation, and I was more than happy to have the law firm support us and allow us to be able to do that, because I think it was awesome. So I'm really proud to be a part of this movement.
And as a mother, were your children there as well?
One was.
Okay.
So I have an 18-year-old daughter,
Nice.
and she was there with me as well. I stayed a lot less time because I didn't want to have her, in the midst of the huge crowd, because it was quite a bit of people. But I was really proud to look over and see the smile on her face and just the pride that she took in being a part of that movement. For me, that solidified, that was a good mom moment for me. I was extremely proud of her and the fact that she was really passionate about what we were there for. So
Yeah.
My son is 19. Okay, he just started driving. His name's Joseph. He's someone I'm really proud of, and he's the gentlest, most innocent kid. Ramesh knows him. He's grown up with him, and just the fact that I don't know 100% that if he leaves the house, that he's going to come home and be safe. What is that? I mean, that's absolutely crazy, because I know my son. He doesn't start any trouble. He doesn't do anything. Nothing like that. But to know that there are ignorant people out there that could think about doing something to harm him. And we saw that the list of all those kids. Did you see how many of those kids are in Texas? I mean, there's a lot of them. We've got to do something about this.
Yes, for sure. We do have some live comments. We have Mark saying, thank you for spreading the word. We have Matthew saying, great leadership, guys. And we have Javier saying, God bless all of you guys. Now, I want you guys also to share with us, what was that energy like? What was that energy within you when you took a stand and walked in that march?
It was very powerful and emotional too, to see all the different race come together and just show love to people that you see on TV losing their lives for everything that's been going on for years. And then we didn't have the media to show what was going on, and now we have all these people coming together to speak up and protest for us.
Yeah, I definitely love the word you use, powerful. That's exactly what I got when we saw the video, is powerful. And a lot of you guys were there. Did you guys feel that same feeling, or anything else overwhelm you with emotions?
It's interesting. After being at the protest, Darren asked me, he said, what was that like? What did that feel to you? And I think the answer that I've always said was that it was really impactful and powerful and important, and it felt like you were really part of something culturally significant. Like, I've been saying that this is the incident that moved the dial, okay? This has all happened before. Trayvon Martin, Ahmaud, all of these kids, we've seen it. But this is the one, as abhorrent and as disgusting as this incident was, unfortunately, this is the one that moved the dial. We didn't do this after Trayvon. We didn't do this after the other guys. But this was the one that made us do this. Okay? And there's a lot of factors that go into that, right? We were all at home for COVID. There's still people at home. And then there's a 9-minute video. And this is the one incident that's forcing all of us to take a stand, right? And I think, we've all been students of history. We've all seen the different marches. We've seen, the civil rights marches with Dr. King. We've seen the other movements that have been made. But it's embarrassing to me when I tell you I haven't been a part of any of those until Tuesday. Okay?
I can't agree with you more. I know that we all have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness regardless of race. And just to know that everyone came together, no matter the race, and to see the effect that it has had on the entire, not only country, but world. We have over 125 countries representing all across this world, stepping up and saying something. And to know that the murderers behind George Floyd has all been arrested, and they have been charged, and now the next step is being convicted. I believe these marches and protests and what's going on will really take us home and standing up for this and providing justice for all of those.
And we are being heard because those charges have been upgraded.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys heard, but
Yes.
initially the charges that were leveled against him were, I hate to say it, they were weak.
They're
Right.
weak.
And these charges, he got upgraded. Now
Right.
he's looking at real jail time.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, and for the other 3 officers to get an aiding and abetting murder charge,
Right.
we're being heard.
Yes.
Being heard.
But this is only our stepping stone.
Right.
Right.
We shouldn't rest here.
Right.
Darren asked me a very important question, and it really struck me, and I think I haven't brought it to Marcelo, I brought it to you, Jakari.
Yeah.
What's next? What do we do next?
And also, I have to say, it doesn't stop here. We have elections coming up, and of course, for the presidential election, it doesn't even just stop and start at the presidential election. We have state elections and other elections throughout the years, and we have to vote during each election. We just can't vote for the president because the president doesn't make all of the decisions. So if we only just vote for the president, then we have to look at the senators, then the state reps, and different things, and the mayor. Those all contribute to laws and policies that govern all of us. So
Now, you guys are all bringing up great points, and I love to hear that. So we're going to talk a little bit more and dive deeper into that, and then the what's next. Now, Attorney Ramesh, I know you just mentioned that you didn't have any experiences, and some people that walked did not, and that's okay, and some people that walked did. Did any of you guys have any past experiences that played on how you felt compelled to walk down this march?
I am a New York City native, and I remember being a teenager, a very early teenager, and watching Amadou Diallo be shot down in the street in my neighborhood, and the injustice of nothing happening. The fact that life didn't hold any value to the justice system, it was extremely frustrating, but it catapulted me to be a legal professional. And even as a legal assistant, as a case manager, as a paralegal, I feel like we all have the opportunity to change not only attorneys, and even to expound off of what Jakari was saying, that, the political aspect of it is very important, but I feel like as individuals, whether or not we're voting, we still can take a personal stand to love one another, to support one another. If we see someone being pulled over, take an extra 5 minutes to make sure that that person makes it out of that situation safely. Make sure that if someone is, being unfairly harassed by a citizen, and if, a person of color is being threatened to call the police on, and you see that nothing is happening, you can take a stand and be active as well. We are advocates. We have to take a stand for ourselves as well. We can't only shift the responsibility to the political aspect of it, because that's the benefit that we have of being citizens of a democracy. We have to hold them accountable. We have to play our role as well, and that is kind of the checks and balances system that we afford as a luxury here in America. So that's something that I really truly stand behind. Watching him, because I was in my neighborhood, it was like 3 or 4 blocks away from my home, and we were outside being children, hanging out in the neighborhood. And that just kind of changed my life dynamic as a teenager, to know that, because yes, he was a man, yes, he was an immigrant, but I'm an immigrant as well. I compile a lot of minority, classifications in one body, and to know that that does not matter, and that I can be unjustly killed, was extremely scary. So for me, not only for my children, because I thought about that after I said it, I have to take a stand for myself. And the fact that I have my own passion behind this as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that experience with us. So just for those who are watching right now, and or any family member or friends that may be unclear of the message that the protesting is giving, or the protesters are giving, Can anyone shine some light on what the meaning is to all of this?
So Monty, I'd like to say some words. I have not personally experienced anything like I experienced on Tuesday. I was born 20 years after the Civil Rights Movement, and what caught my attention is I was just deeply saddened at the fact that we're in 2020 and we're sitting here discussing such despicable acts and things that are going around our country, and we're not unifying ourselves. And we can accomplish so much if we just get together and roll forward with what we need to do as a society. So when Tuesday came around and just reading everything in the news and all the heartbreak and everything that's going on, the message that I wanted to put forward in my presence there was to be was to let everyone know that I support this cause. I support it, and I want people to understand that, you know, a lot of attention is being placed towards police departments as a whole. You know, I think it's important to distinguish that. No one here is against the police department as a whole, but there are certain rotten bad apples that needs to be addressed, and we unfortunately have not seen it. And I think that growing up and reading about the civil rights movement in school, you think that happened years ago, but yet again, we're seeing history to an extent repeat itself. And just like, how can we be living in this time? So I was very happy to be out there to support, and everything, you know, I applaud the city of Houston because I think the march was a peaceful protest, which is also important to note, and everything went smooth, and so I was just very happy to see that. And obviously it took me away. There was people, as you mentioned, there was people from all different cultures, races, everything, but they were there for a common goal, and that's exactly what we want to do, put forward and shine a light towards.
You know, Ramesh and I were talking about this before we started filming, about this particular incident and how compelling it is. And it's no longer a situation where, okay, it's some kid got shot and it's over with. You cannot continue to stay on the fence on this particular issue. Right. Either you're for the solution or you're a part of the problem. Right. You cannot do that any further. People are dying. Parents are losing their children, their family members. Over what? Over ignorance of a very small group of people. We have the power to do something. And one thing I have to disagree with you on. You said something with regards to voting and whether or not you vote or not. One of the things that we have to do, that this firm is going to do, that we're going to get involved, is making sure that our voices are heard by mobilizing and making sure we're registered to vote and getting everybody out there to vote and change those people that are in power doing nothing about this particular problem. It's the time for action is now, and we've got to take advantage of that.
You said a very powerful word there, and that's change. And I want to talk about that word. What does change need to look like or sound like, in your opinion?
I think what needs to happen, there needs to be accountability. Right. Once you have accountability, then the officers will think twice about their actions. Because when there's accountability, there's care. You know, there's a climate of, they just don't value certain groups of people. And so when you have accountability, you think twice, like, okay, maybe I shouldn't treat this person like an animal. Right. And it's going to start with the laws changing and then hold them accountable. If there's no accountability, there'll be no change.
Right. But you can take that a step further, and I think this is one of the things that we were talking about, is that there are certain ways that even on a fundamental level you can affect change. Right. Whether it's what type of tactics are used, what type of restraint, restraint methods are used. Right. Should they be allowed to use such forces? Should they be trained in such forces? Right. Like, are these things, should we continue to employ these type of tactics during normal arrests? Right. You know, the thing that struck me the most with the Floyd incident was he was not committing a violent crime. He was not being aggressive or violent or resisting or anything. Okay, he was successfully detained. Okay, and he was peacefully detained. Yet there was 4 officers using tactics and employing skills that they were taught. They were taught. Nobody, you and I don't just know how to, immobilize a guy and make sure we have the right proper technique and have our knee on his neck and have the other people on pressure points on his body, like, you're taught that. You don't just know that.
Right.
Okay? And those are the kind of things where that's where you can affect change as well.
Right.
I mean, philosophically and, talking generally, yes, we want people to evolve and mature and change over time, right? The one thing that we all know is that the world is a progressive place. Change always wins, right? Change always wins. Nothing stays the same. It never stays the same. However, the harder fight is to change the philosophy.
Right.
Change would have to be consistent. In other words, when there is a solution, are we going to stick with it? And what I mean by that, what developed while you were speaking is, there's been many of us black dying, being killed. You have a vigilant, you have protests, and it quiets down until another black person is killed. And for me, what's next is where I come in. I had family member die, and there's nothing that we can do because they have the upper hand. Ignorance that I don't know about. Ignorance is a part of destruction too, when we don't know. So education is going to be absolutely important. And whatever we come up with as a change, let's not just change it for a little while.
Right.
It has to be continued.
Yes.
And it has to be known that we're not going to tolerate the sometimes.
Right.
Because it's all the time that we die.
Yes, I agree. Change shouldn't be temporary. It should happen. It should stay consistent. We do have a comment from Mark, and it's kind of shedding some light on that. He said, "We are all one community and are united. These types of chats will only make us stronger." And with these chats, I agree. We educate. We're educating one another. We're educating those that are watching right now, our family members from when they're little to even to this age. Education is super important, and change doesn't just need to happen, it will happen.
And also, when speaking about change, I'm a firm believer that we all have similarities. We have more similarities than we do differences.
Right.
And with that, with change, we have to continue to move forward together than backwards divided. I mean, as you said, in past circumstances and past issues, we had many fallen people between, Trayvon Martin, Kendrick Johnson, Breonna Taylor. We have Ahmaud Arbery, Eric Gardner, Tamir Rice. We have all these people who has, been killed by senseless violence from, police brutality, and we have not done anything. So I believe this is a pivotal point in our history that change will actually occur, and we have to just continue moving forward with the hard fight.
One thing I appreciate, though, about this conversation is the word solution, because identifying the problem is quite easy. We can all kind of sit and pinpoint what the issue is, but without there being an opportunity for a solution, without us being a part of the solution, figuring out what the solution even is and how we can play a part in that and how we can kind of promote that change. Because like you guys said, if we don't motivate that change, it's not going to happen. It's just going to fall by the wayside. The movement is going to quiet down. What is our solution going to be? So that's the one thing I loved about what all of you guys have said, pinpointing the fact that there is a need for a solution.
We have an incentive to do this. It's interesting. I know Mark has made a couple of comments through the chat, and I will say this. Mark asked me a very important question before, because he's a really good friend of mine, and we talked about it. And he said what impacted him the most about this is that this is something that we have to explain to our children. And what he was hoping for was that when his daughter, who was growing up, my daughter, who was growing up, all of our children, we didn't want to have these discussions.
Right.
But it's unfortunate, because now we have to answer to these discussions. And we have to answer their questions. But our incentive is there, because if we don't solve this problem, it's not going to be any better for them.
Right.
To piggyback on that, change will also be have an effect when the minority is the only one outraged. When the minority is being oppressed and or belittled or suffocated to an extent, by themselves, they suffer in silence, or they suffer out loud but no one hears them. So when the other people that are majority, they also become outraged by the same tactics and same antics, that's when the volume raises and more ears are going to hear that. So as long as we continue to now band on and grab arms and lock arms and continue to show ourselves as one and all being outraged at something despicable, that's how the volume gets raised. As long as the volume is raised, more ears are going to hear it, and then change, and that needle will slowly shift.
And that's one of the things that, Clarence, that I'm really encouraged by, is that obviously you see the undertone of black people going out and saying certain things, but now you're seeing people, Hispanic people, white people, females, all speaking out about this injustice and what's going on, because people are realizing this is ridiculous, and we have to explain it to our children. We've got to do something about this problem. So I'm encouraged by that, the fact that so many people in so many different walks of life are actively getting involved, and that's why we're going to continue to do this until we get something done.
Yes, and a lot of you guys mentioned, let's not go backwards, right? A lot of you guys we've already addressed the problem. We've already talked about why we are here. Now, the big question is, how do we move forward? What needs to happen to get there?
I think we need to have more minorities in offices, and so that means we need to go out to our communities and explain to the people how important it is to vote. Because most of the time when you talk to people, they think that their voices won't be heard. Right. They don't understand. Everything starts on the local level. If we can get more power from the local level, then we'll be heard on the federal level, which is the highest level. Right. So I think that would be useful.
And I love that you said that. Let's talk about some of those changes or purpose in the state level that probably needs to happen to then progress to the federal level. What is some of those changes that we would like to see? And think of your communities. Think of what's happening around you. What are some of those changes that you guys would like to see? And then from there, it's almost like a cancer. It grows, and then it's going to go to the federal. Positive change is what we want it to spread.
Honestly, I would love, as attorneys and up-and-coming attorneys and all legal professionals, we're all the team. We're up-and-coming attorneys, and we're going to be the ones to effectuate this change. And it's important to realize how important that is. But at the same time, being active in our communities is important. I would love to see, police officers and people who are in the justice system, whether it's judges, whoever's being active in those roles of power, be held accountable and not necessarily have this barrier around them as if they're untouchable. Because I believe that what she said was so important about accountability, but it goes on so many levels. Right now they're charged, but are they going to be convicted? If the judge is prejudicial, we have to be able to stand behind this case and say, hey, this is important for us. Can you recuse yourself? We have to call them out on these things, because if not, there's still gonna be a slither of injustice that seeps in. We have to. I agree with what he said about being banded, because once we're banded, we become a wall, so where nothing can leak through. But it's encouraging for me to know that I individually am the future of this movement, and I think that that's the most important thing. Yes, it's a collective issue. But I think we all have to individually be fired up and say, you know what, I'm the future of this movement. I am the change that's going to happen. And do it individually as well as collectively, if that makes sense.
And to what she said. Yeah. Okay, so when we go to the trial and we have a pre-trial, the jury selection, that there has to be some changes, because they're the people who would convict the person. So when you're in court and they're picking and throwing out certain jurors because they feel like that person will go against, convicting, then there needs to be a change with the laws when we have a jury selection who can be thrown out, and what are the real reasons these people are being thrown out and not allowed to sit on the jury.
Do you guys want to talk a little bit about how the jury selection even works in the world of law, to kind of shed some light on the process for those that are watching that may not know what goes into it as attorneys to select a jury?
There's a lot of factors that go into selecting the jury. I would say that obviously depending on what side you're on, you're going to look for jurors that are going to be more open to or receptive, better said, to your argument, your side of the story. And so it is important to kind of notate, hey, this is an ongoing issue, because if the jury consists of, all individuals who are going to contribute to the problem and not, solve the issue, then we're going to have this cyclical, issue, and we're not going to make any advances towards that.
Yeah, well said. I know you guys mentioned that together we could be a strong wall. United, we are stronger. So how can we come together from this panel to the ones that are watching in Texas, in New York, in Chicago? How can we come together and create this change?
I think we can come together first by being of our word. Walk it like we talk it. We're talking a lot, which is great. We're coming up with these great ideas and solutions, and we know the problems. But it's time to really, walk it and do the work. Like we are said several times, elections are pivotal. It starts with voter registration. We have thousands and thousands of people who have yet to be registered to vote. And it starts with that. Those small numbers can change an entire election. So if we really begin to, walk these roads, walk these sidewalks, and register people to vote, 30 minutes a day, a couple hours a week, it really starts with these elections, in my opinion. And so we just don't have to be just so divided on different levels. I mean, of course we have Democrats and Republicans, but we all, like I say, have more similarities than we do differences. So we all stand up for a cause, and we actually believe in it and work together as a unit, and not have 100,000 different chiefs, and we're all committed to this one goal. We can do it.
And I think that's just the one half of it.
Yeah.
There's the other half of it is educate yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Educate yourself. And look, I'll sit up here in front of everybody and tell you, before this, the latest current administration, like I told Darren, none of this really, like I said, moved the dial for me.
Right.
It was rhetoric. It was hot air. I mean, my lease was still due. My mortgage was still due.
Right.
My car
Right.
bill was still due. It didn't matter. It didn't make any difference to me.
Right.
But now, it does.
Right.
And it's enough to want to effectuate change. But we can't just effectuate change by registering to vote.
Right.
You have to know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Right.
And all the information is there. Okay? So it's a two-part solution. So, to answer your question directly, Marty, first you need to educate yourself.
Right.
And then you need to arm yourself with your rights that you have.
Right.
Because without that, it doesn't really matter. And Republicans or Democrats, none of that stuff really matters, because
Right.
when you go to the ballot box, you can vote this guy Republican, you can vote for this guy Democrat, you can vote for this guy Republican, you can vote for this guy. It doesn't matter. You
Right.
vote for what makes the changes, who are going to make the changes you feel
Correct.
are going to move towards a better society. But we have to educate ourselves.
Also, I'm sorry, Marty. I think that's something that gets overlooked too, are like town hall meetings, open forums that the government does allow for public citizens to come and kind of give our input. I just feel like as much as we can integrate ourselves into the process of creating laws, passing laws, just being active, and like you said, Ramesh, being more knowledgeable, not only for our individual state, but maybe, countrywide. Just kind of knowing what these things are, familiarizing ourselves with terminology, knowing what we're talking about. Because even if we go to town hall meetings, like you said, if we're just ranting, we're not going to be heard. As opposed to if I go to a jury selection and mention voir dire, that they're going to know I know what I'm talking about. So like you said, if we educate ourselves, that is the most important weapon that we have at this point, being educated, and then using that education to then speak out in a positive way in open forums like this, but also, as you said, acting on that. And I feel like I said, any open forum, whether it's zoning, there are different issues that come up. There are different hearings that happen in every single city that we do not attend. I don't think we value, jury selection. Some of these things are public. But do we go to trials? Should it only be this trial? What if there's someone whose death is not publicized as much? What if there's someone who gets a wrong ticket? What if one of us are in the park and someone who's a majority calls the police on us for no reason, and we're just congregating, having a great time? Are you going to stand up for those times too? I feel like we have to, it's a whole picture. I just appreciate all of you guys' perspective, but I think that we need to kind of be mindful of how we can interject ourselves in even those processes as well.
Right.
And I know this platform is very powerful. The platform that we're all on, kind of speaking to each other on a local and a national level. So what we will be doing this year is educating you guys on that voting process. We will try to give you guys as much footage on these shows and on our social media on what to do and how to do it. All minorities, everybody that's out there. We want to educate and just stress that importance. So we will be doing that this year. So make sure that you guys are following us. Now, I do have a question, Attorney Darren Miller. For you, what exactly does silence mean during these times?
Unfortunately, silence in this situation is akin to ignorance, and that you don't care. Watching what's been unfolding here lately it's been outrageous, and with Floyd here, this is it. This is it for me. I can no longer just sit on the sidelines doing nothing, and we've got to urge our neighbors, our friends, people that we typically wouldn't challenge on issues like this to say, hey, is this okay with you? You know, I'm sure you probably wouldn't feel this way if it was your cousin, your son, your father. So what are you going to do about it? Because I know I'm going to do something about it. But silence is no longer an alternative. People who want to be, who are going to continue to be silent on issues like this, as Ramesh and I talked about right before the show, I can't associate with them because this is wrong, okay? And we're not just talking about a black or white issue. Right. We're talking about injustice, okay? And we've got to stop this, because if we don't, our rights are going to continue to get eroded, and stuff is going to continue to go in the direction that it has over these last few years.
Right.
Yeah, and we do have 2 live comments right now. This one's from Mark. Mark is saying education is how we move forward. We have to teach these out of the next generation. We can do it. I definitely agree with you, Mark.
Absolutely.
I do have another comment from Lisa. Lisa saying registering to vote will help with the jury pool as well. Yes. So if any of you guys have that strong belief, I definitely feel that voting is, like Ramesh said, one part of the solution. Right. Now, you mentioned something as far as making sure people are okay. And I want to ask that. How important is it right now to ask your family, your friends, your loved ones if they're okay? Sit them at a table and see how they feel. How important is that even in your households right now?
Very important.
I think it's extremely important.
I had to, even before coming to the show, my son doesn't have a Facebook. He's about to be 12. But I sent him the link anyway so he could watch it. And he asked me, he said, Mom, how do you feel about George Floyd dying? And it broke my heart. It broke my heart that my 11-year-old child has to be susceptible to not only someone else's violence, but feeling that as a young black boy growing up to be a man, that he's not valued in this country. So I think it's extremely unfortunate that we have to have these conversations, but I'm glad that we're in a position to have these conversations in a positive way. I just kind of directed him and stirred him and let him know that, he can still stand forth in his truth, and that his feelings are valid, because he was very upset. I just explained to him that his feelings are valid, and that, as long as he is knowledgeable and peaceful as possible, that good things happen. But I wish that was the truth. I'm a mother, so I had to give the mother answer. But sitting here, I wish that was the truth. I wish that I could trust that if he's peaceable, he'll be okay, because we don't. That's not necessarily true. So it's sad that.
And as a mother, when do you start having those transparent conversations? I know, Attorney Marcelo, you saw a little boy at the protest. How old was he? About 5 or 6 that you mentioned?
Very young. I think definitely not older than 8 or 9. He was very young, and he was out there, and he was on top of his dad's shoulders, and he was holding a sign that said that today is my birthday, and if we don't make changes, I might not see my next birthday. Mm-hmm. And it's such a very powerful message to see this young, innocent, beautiful boy, unfortunately caught up in this mess that we're in here as a society, but very impactful to see him out there. And I thought, well, my goodness, I can imagine only imagine, the type of conversations that need to be had with these young individuals at such a young age. And it's just, to an extent, we're also taking away the innocence from these kids and just throwing them into the realities of the world, which is, of course, you need to be up to date and cognizant of everything that's going on in the world. It's just a very difficult conversation to have with such a young individual.
Right.
I do. Go ahead.
I think a lot of people right now are overwhelmed. They're angry. They're upset. Their emotions are everywhere, and they have the right to be. We all have the right to be. But I also do know at some point it comes to a time whereas we have to put that anger, that upset to the gravel and hit the road running. Educating ourselves, as we've said, registering to vote and putting laws and policies in place and working with our elected officials and just our community to work together. So we all have the right to be upset, overwhelmed, angry, and there's just so much going on. We have our personal lives, we have work, we have church, we have so much going on. And COVID, it's a lot going on. So we have the right to be overwhelmed, but at some point it's time for us to hit this road running.
Well, I just wanted to bring back the point, when it comes to making change, it's a really important point. You register to vote, you're eligible to be chosen as a jury selection.
Yes.
So if you want to make change at the most basic fundamental level, register yourself.
Right.
Make sure that you're eligible to get a jury summons.
Right.
Make sure that you're eligible to accept that jury summons and go and become a juror and do your part and do your civic duty, because that's where change is made. We're talking about change. This is change.
And that's where we have a big problem, Ramesh, is that minorities, typically speaking, we don't get involved in that process.
Right.
We don't register to vote. We don't get on the juries. We don't make those decisions with regards to the lawmakers and the people who make those decisions for us. We have the power, and many times we decide I'm going to give it to somebody else.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
I think they don't know that they have the power. So that's where the education will come in.
Sure.
You do have power. Your voice does matter, and then we can have change. But if you think your voice doesn't matter, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to say anything.
Right.
And even once the officials are elected, being active constituents, holding them accountable. If your congressman is not giving you the results that he promised to get voted, and you voted for him, even if you didn't vote for him, being an active constituent in your neighborhood, learning what a constituent is, learning the role of the congressman, the senator, the governor, knowing that you can challenge them. I'm not saying aggressively challenge them. I'm saying go and speak with them, or speak to people in their office, or bring up ideas, or write their office. You can correspond with these officials. They are not unreachable, if that makes sense. You may not be able to have a face-to-face conversation with that person, but you can write their office. You can be an active constituent and let it be known that there's someone in their district and in their zip code that cares about what's going on in their neighborhood. And honestly, those are the things that may affect change as well. So even beyond voting, because like they said, I appreciate the attorneys so much, because they are pulling these issues, and it's an onion. And I feel like there's so many different layers that we have to kind of address, and we're not even going to be able to address everything here at one time. But at the same time, knowing your active role, learning these roles, and then everybody take their proper stance, and kind of knowing that they can effectuate change and that their voice does matter, even after voting. So I think it's important to kind of learn the whole process and
Holding them accountable.
Yeah.
So to elaborate back on your question, what we discussed while we're at home in our personal lives. My mother is 65 years old, and she said repeatedly she has saw this as an issue, and the people that speak out for them in the past are all silenced through violence. So it's not that they don't want to speak up and go out and vote. It's like we're pretty much outnumbered, unheard, and they harm leaders ahead of us that's getting us out there to go march and protest, and they are killed. So I think it's more of a fear that they're having.
Right.
And the reason why I marched myself and went out there to protest is because I just said, well, if all of my people are going to be fearful, I'm not. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to go out there and try to help fight, regardless of the consequences that we keep seeing happen repeatedly. And it takes people to just forget their fears and go out there. And voting too, another thing that I appreciate this company specifically is they give us time to, as a group, go out there and vote.
Right.
I've never been to any company, I'm 31 now, no company has allowed me to go protest, to go vote, or, be active, with the things that we are encountering repeatedly.
Yeah, well said. And I know a lot of you guys right now are kind of mentioning people don't vote, minorities don't vote, stuff like that. I kind of want to know from either the viewers or these panel members here, what are you going to do to get people to listen, to understand, and respond with action? It's one of our last questions that we have. So I really want you guys to get in your heart and to see what we're going to do to change our society.
I'm going to take the advice that I've heard from people in my family and from my partner, that you lead, and you lead by example. You take stock of your position and where you are, and those who you influence, and those who are influenced by you, because that applies to all of us.
Right.
Whether it's our children, it's our families, it's our spouses, it's our significant others, it doesn't matter. It's the people we work with. There is a sphere in which you influence people, and you are a leader. And what I personally am going to do is lead by example. I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to do all the things that we've said here. I am registered to vote. I'm going to make sure that I vote. I'm going to participate in protests and marches like we did on Tuesday. And I'm going to participate in what's next. And we're starting that immediately.
I am going to be readily available to the process, because I believe that since we're so passionate in this panel and in this company, that the buck is not going to stop here. So I'm going to start by educating myself as an individual, but also being readily available when you guys need people to be on the ground running, when you need foot soldiers to go register, whether it's registering people to vote or handing out pamphlets on education and the justice system, and whatever role it is that you guys need from me. I'm going to be readily available to do that, because I know a lot of the planning may go on behind the scenes, but when you guys are ready to put it in action, I'm going to be definitely one of those people who are going to be on the front lines and getting this stuff done, whatever it is. Whether it's us going out and registering people to vote, whether it's printing out pamphlets or compiling education to hand to people that's also easily understood, because legal jargon is a whole nother language in of itself. So sometimes, just being able to translate that and encourage people to vote and do other things. And even, like you said, it's going to be times that we're going to be outside in the heat. But I think that the sacrifice, just knowing that I'm willing to be a personal sacrifice in whatever the plan is, it's a lot more than just this conversation, but I'm going to do some research and again be readily available to not only the company, but what my family needs as well. Because I think that what you said is so important, Ramesh, that we all have to take up the torch and kind of push forward with us. So
let me add to what you've said, and definitely what Ramesh has said, is that this is our responsibility, okay? And what I mean by that is, one of the main reasons we're sitting here today is because of his beautiful wife, Lisa, okay? Lisa, I talked to her before the march, and we exchanged a few messages about this, that, and the other. And she pretty much is like, I'm going. This is BS. I'm going down there, and I'm going to go do something. And guess what, Darren? You have a bigger forum than I do. More people listen to you. More people are going to respond to you. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I didn't put it together. But until she kicked me in the butt and said, you need to make something happen.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why we put this all together and did what we did on Tuesday and did what we're doing now. And so Ramesh and I have talked about this, and we're going to take this to the next level.
Right.
I don't know exactly what that's going to be yet, but sure as I'm telling you guys out there, we are going to do something to take this to the next level. I promise y'all that.
Yeah, and I definitely want to challenge you guys the viewers and the ones in this room, we have a huge group where we work. We all have a network. We all have our family members, our friends. I challenge you to educate yourself and spread that knowledge to your network. The more you spread and the more you're able to share that knowledge, you can educate others that probably didn't pick up a device, a book, or anything like that. So I definitely challenge every single one of you guys. Like you said, we hold the torch. It starts with us. It starts with you that is watching right now. Now, we're coming to the end of the show, and Attorney Darren Miller, you gave a great message on how you're going to hit the ground running as well. So what is one last message you want to leave our viewers with today?
Well, as I just mentioned, I mean, I know we've reached the end of the show. It's been very compelling, obviously, very important, emotional to you guys, to myself as well. But although the show's going to be over, we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop until we achieve our goals, which is educating people, reaching people, getting people more involved, drawing attention to the social injustice, and encouraging people to evoke and create change. That's what we're going to do. This firm, this company, us, we're going to do our part to make sure that crap like what happened to Mr. Floyd and other families like that don't happen again. So we're going to do our part. I promise you that.
Yes, and the current state of the world is scary right now with racial inconsistencies, which is causing a lot of pain, disruption in some more than others. Although some of you guys may feel angry, also feel hopeful. You have the strength and the power to make a difference. Young men and women that are minorities, you matter. Your lives matter, and your existence matters. I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in to Talk to Me Tuesday on this Friday. I want to thank you guys for liking this show, and most importantly, for sharing it. The more you share, the more we are all able to make a mark and use this platform and educate others that are around you. I want to thank you all for tuning in to today's show. Until next time.
This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children.